Post a request from Christine Russo. Here is my review of the true crime interview with Steve Shirilla. I'll say up front, I've got a couple of different elements around here that you may not have heard before. I think that there's a strong chance that Mackenzie may have shared information with her mother that was also likely not gone to the father. There's parts in here when they talk about the gypsy language, and he said they do that when they didn't want us to hear, and he pauses. There's some element there where you realise what he's just said. He says about times that she would know if there was a circumstance who to call. Her mum would know. She would call her mum, so we would know. So there's communication elements in there that surround potentially that being a path that's occurred. The other thing is here, there's a whole range of elements where there's the eye-blocking behaviour and lots of non-congruence when he's saying things like, I'm not doing this to slander Dom. So there's elements where he leaks facial micro-expressions, body language that doesn't align to the words he's put together. So I'll break it down the whole lot with a timestamp of my thoughts and then follow that up with some clips at the end. Please make sure you follow. Thanks for the support. So post a request from Christine Russo and from a few of you. I've reviewed the true crime interview with Steve Shirilla. I'm going to give you some breakdown onto that, then I've got some clips at the end of this. Now, because there are so many elements, I've got a couple of items there with some timestamps. So when I'm talking about the timestamp thing, so you can watch the video along and see those things yourselves. So I'll look up a couple of the notes for that. A couple of things first up front, I want to say, I know we're saying about the interview there with True Crime, more than 50% of that, I consider that more a press conference than an interview. It was so pre-staged that on numerous occasions, Steve Shirilla is actually responding before he's asked the question. He shows facial expressions before coming up. There was one at the start, 1 minute 40 in and 9 minutes in, where he looks for it and he actually starts responding before the question about his shirt and other parts as well. There's even another phrasing bit in there. He says, oh, we'll get to that in a sec. So they've sent off elements where they've pre-rehearsed a large number of these things. So just to clarify with the framing for that. Some key elements for things now. 3 minutes 30 in, they're talking about the black box. And they're obviously a crux for what they're focusing on is about this non-linear movement. They reference that 7 or 8 times throughout the video. And when he does that, you see he leans in, additional gesturing for these sort of things as well. So whatever's coming for their part of an argument that they're going to try and put forward, that's going to be part of it. But let's be practical. If somebody's speeding and around an S-bend of these items, the car to some element as well is going to go through and be off balance, which could trigger some sensors. But that's not my area of expertise. That's for them to go through and sort out. 3 minutes 54, when he's talking about the eye bags, the airbags, we know from Steve Shirilla's previous videos that one of his biggest tells when there's strong discomfort, where he's not aligned to his words, is this eye blocking behavior, where he closes his eyes. We saw that in the documentary, coupled with the, I know when my daughter's lying. You see it multiple times throughout this video. So when he's talking about the airbags and when they went before going in, you see he's done the same thing there. So that tells me he's not 100% conviction with the things that he's sharing there. 5 minutes 30 in, you see a big change, because what's happening is he's getting into his cell story for a range of these things. And he says, oh, I can't explain the speed, but, and then jumps into how it was a cut through and these other things, which has nothing to do with speed. So what that means is, aside from anything else where they're saying any of their arguments, any of the story, they've got no explanation as to why she was speeding and hitting like that sort of speed. Hence why they very quickly need to try and move on from it. That's at 5:30. At 7 minutes 25 in, he starts talking about the drugs. So with that part as well, and saying about, oh, I just know this. How did you know? My daughter told me. I just know. So this is coming from the same person who says he knows when his daughter's lying and these sort of things as well. We now know that his source of truth, that he's got sole conviction on of these things being correct, are from that same source of truth being for with his daughter as well. The other thing when he's saying about that, like I said, shaking his head no when he says about, I know when my daughter's lying. 8 minutes 26 is a powerful time. And I'll share a clip of this at the end as well. When they're speaking about the documentary and the words that he chooses to say, I was trying to be as honest as I could. That's not being honest, trying to be as honest. And how honest? As honest as I could. As honest as I could be without giving up information that would work against us. I think that's incredibly telling. You see that verbally and non-verbally, the changes there. 9 minutes in, they start speaking about the t-shirt, and you see he's already smiling and responding before he's asked the question. So this is preset, pre-stage, where he jumps into the reason why he was wearing the boom shirt, which everybody had said was completely inappropriate. At 10:35 in there as well, you see he's speaking about some of the other related friends, and he says something about Tench said something that didn't happen. But as he's doing that, he said that's when Tench spoke about things that didn't happen. So there's a strong eye blocking behavior element there as well. Plus some, I remember some lip compression and other items. So whatever that element is more about, there's more to delve in with these sort of things as well. Now, you see 15 minutes in, he starts talking about work and moved on for work. Now, when you see that, that's one of the first times you see he's got his legs crossed, got his hand on his legs, and he starts this self-pacifying gesture. Anytime our brain has stress or discomfort, what happens is, like, the brain sends a message to the body saying, I'm stressed, can you calm me, can you soothe me? So you see at that time in, at 15 minutes in, he starts a self-pacifying gesture. The other big thing where it's telling about with the eyes closed, the eye blocking, which happens when he talks about drugs or any negative element with Mackenzie, is 17 minutes 40 in, they were never breaking up. Now he does that again during like that time. So we've seen this now across 3 videos where as he's talking about this element, there's some strong element of discomfort. Now, when we're saying as to what's potentially driving this, if that was the case and there's depth to this, then obviously part of that goes towards motive. So that's why that's so important. The other thing, I didn't see much at 18:55. He says, I didn't see much of the fights. And then you see that there's a change there as well where he gets dry mouth and other parts as well, because he's trying to say that it was a good dynamic. And if they had something as well, that it wasn't bad. And so when he says a statement, that I didn't see much of the fights, he quickly transitions to another statement. So in other words, he's leaked that, and I don't think he was comfortable in leaking that. 20 minutes and 5 in, he talks about gypsy speak and how they're talking as well. Now, I think this is incredibly telling, because at 20 minutes and 5, he talks about the gypsy speak. He says something quickly, then corrects himself. They do that when they don't want people to know what they're talking about. What does that tell me? Likely Mackenzie and her mum, like Natalie, have things that they share between each other. Now, if you think potentially what the circumstance here, if Steve's being a bit of a front man from the media point of view, and there's another part in the interview where he said, if there was a situation, Mackenzie knew who to call, like she would call my wife, so that way we would know what was going on. There's a lot of defaulting there straight to the mum. You can't rule out the fact that Mackenzie's mum knows more about what's happening, and that's why there's this split in communication here that he has evidenced himself by his own words. So that was a big part as well. The other part about eyes closed, we saw for that eye blocking behavior, 22 minutes 10 in when he's talking about that. And she wanted to have suicide for these things as well. And you see he does the same thing. Now that's logical for 2 reasons. One, talking about your own child, thinking like this would cause discomfort. So remember, we don't look for deception, angry, sad, wherever we look for just the changes or deviations in baseline, comfort versus discomfort. Then we work through what drives it by the other channel elements and clusters we have around it. 24:20 starts again talking about non-linear for these sort of things. So saying about realistically, and that's their key thing about with this black box, and if there would have been airbag deployment, whatever. But from a non-linear point of view, if somebody's speeding going around a corner, that's going to be a non-linear element as well with what they've got going on. 25:05, they're speaking about some stuff, and he says, okay, we'll get to that in a second. So in other words, I know what questions are coming because I've likely given them to you and pre-practiced, pre-rehearsed these answers. But regardless of that, the body still leaks what it leaks with these sort of things when there's stress, discomfort, deceptive indicators. 28 minutes in, I've got to say, is quite weird. Because I was talking about the interview there with the documentary, and he said, I thought she did great. She was beautiful. I have no idea what that has to do when your daughter is trying to put forward her messaging or content in response to an alleged about 2 murders. But if that doesn't tie to how much of an image focus Mackenzie and this whole family has, it ties into everything with my prior video about who they are and what they're focused about. 30 minutes 25 in, you see the same thing when he said about fighting, and then you see the focus, because they're very obviously focused on that for the day. So he says that 6 times in a row. I know there was no fighting, and in the morning they got up to it, and Rosie said he had to head in the lap. So that's just trying to reiterate the positive elements out of the messaging to try and keep that image. The biggest thing is here, and from how you see the strength and response, I'd say likely there's some strong evidence of fighting, and they realise that shows part towards motive and intent. Now, there's a bit 3244 in where they're talking about some things, the circumstances with Dom and drugs. And we talk about congruence. People's words need to be congruent with their actions. And he literally says, I'm not saying this to slander Dom. And as he says it, it is the strongest head nod he has in the whole 50-minute interview when he's doing that. He knows that this is 100% trying to manage Mackenzie's image and to try and put some doubt on others. So when he says, I'm not saying this to slander Dom, watch that part and you'll see how much incongruence there is with what he's saying and what he's showing. 3540 in, there's where you talk about Nancy Margaret Russo. You see that they say about that in any type of connection, and then there's a hard cut in the video, and then there's a complete reset, even in positioning and posture. So he has said something then that they have wanted out, so they've stopped and edited. It mustn't have gone to script or said something that they maybe worry may be used against him. So be keen to find out what happened during that time. But let's be practical. Aside from the individual elements, and I'll share some clips here, if you take at face value what Steve is saying, then the detective, the investigators, the judge, Mackenzie's solicitor, the diocese where he worked, every other single person around that family is negligent and shouldn't have a job. That's the ultimate version of deflection with any of these things and not taking these things on board. So I'll share more of these clips. Let me know your feedback because there's lots more to come.
Wasn't trying to hide anything. I was trying to be as honest as I could, but it seemed to be more about me. There's powder all over there's powder floating in the car, in the cabin of the car.
Are you saying the airbags deployed before the accident?
To both side.
There were a couple questions that had come up. One was, can you tell us a little, it's such a stupid little thing, your shirt. Can you tell?
Well, let me ask again. Is this okay? I don't want to trigger anybody in this world that I'm wearing an orange polo. I hope. He's the one that gave the information or the intent to Mackenzie in her trial. He's the one that stated something that didn't happen, and we've got proof that Mackenzie did not threaten that crash that car that day. And my wife was helping them try to fix their relationship, and they were never, ever breaking up. And anybody who says that is lying. And I don't. Nothing, it's like when the gypsies and the carnivals would come around and they didn't want the locals to hear what they were saying. That's what they would speak. Yeah. So my daughter and wife talk that way. And when they don't want to have someone hear what they're talking about, that's what they. And it wasn't. I thought she did well, and she was beautiful, and I think she was very. Again, I'm not saying that to slander Dominic. It is.